Welcome back. Now we're going to learn how to solve a quadratic equation. Remember, the word solve means to isolate your variable. You want to get your x by itself. But recall, if this is a quadratic equation, it has the term x squared. And that is not the same as getting x by itself. So we got to learn in mathematics, how do we physically change an x squared to an x? Well, you already know this, guys and gals. You know how to factor. We all know if we take x squared and rewrite it as multiplication, we factor it, it would be x times x. And that's what we're going to do. To solve a quadratic equation, the quickest and easiest way is to factor your expression. And when you factor it, your x squared would change into x times x. And once you get an x, you now have a linear equation you know how to solve. If you look, there are 3 steps you have to memorize to solve a quadratic equation. And this is by the factoring method. There are always 3 steps. Step 1 is you want the equation set equal to 0. And the reason why is to factor, the first thing you need is all your terms together on the left side. So to solve a quadratic equation using factoring, step 1, you move all your terms to the left side, and that means the equation will equal 0. You also want those terms in the correct descending order. Okay? Step 2, once you have all your terms on the left side, then you're going to factor the expression. Now, this means you're going to have to recall everything from the previous modules. There were 5 rules of factoring we learned: GCF, difference of perfect squares, trinomial, grouping, and sum or difference of perfect cubes. We will be working very much with the 4 top rules. We will not use the rule perfect cubes because we all know a perfect cube is going to have an exponent of 3, and seeing these are quadratic equations, the highest exponent is 2. So we're going to factor using GCF, difference of perfect squares, trinomial, and grouping. Once we get this equation factored, what's going to happen is the x squared is going to break into x times x. And now that's going to give us 2 x's to solve for. That's going to create 2 linear equations. So the rule of thumb is a quadratic equation always factors into 2 linear equations. And you already know how to solve linear equations. That's from Algebra 1. And once you solve the 2 linear equations, you will have 2 solutions. So if you look at the PowerPoint, here's my simple quadratic. X squared equals 9. I know it's quadratic. It has an x squared. Step 1, move all terms to the left side. So I have to move the 9 by subtracting it. Now my new equation is x squared minus 9 equals 0. Now that all my terms are on the left side in descending order, how do I factor x squared minus 9? Is there a GCF? Nope. Is it difference of perfect squares? Yes, it has the difference sign. X squared and 9 are perfect squares. So to factor difference of perfect squares, we put 2 sets of parentheses and we think backwards. What times itself is x squared? X times x. What times itself is 9? 3 times 3. How do you multiply to make a negative 9? 1 3 is positive, 1 3 is negative. Now on the left side, you have 2 x's. They don't have exponents, so we understand there'd be 1s. So now these are 2 linear equations, and you set each of them equal to 0. So you say x plus 3 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. And you know how to solve linears. On the first linear, you subtract 3, so your solution is x equals negative 3. On the second linear, you do the opposite. You add 3. You get x equals positive 3. Every quadratic equation will give you 2 solutions. That's why quadratics are degree 2. Now, once you solve, you should check. When you check a solution, you always go back to the original equation. So the original equation was x squared equals 9. First, I'm going to check the negative 3. I'm going to replace x with negative 3. Negative 3 squared equals 9. What is negative 3 squared? That's 9. 9 equals 9. It checks. I'm going to check my second solution. I'm going to take 3 and substitute it in for x. So now I'll get 3 squared equals 9. What's 3 squared? 9. 9 equals 9. It checks. Both solutions should always check. If they don't, then you solved your quadratic wrong. All right, let's go to the whiteboard.